Hi, in this video I'm going to talk about networking and content delivery services. We are going to address 6 key services. The first is Amazon Route 53, then we'll be looking at Amazon VPC alongside Amazon Direct Cloud. Then we'll go through Amazon API Gateway followed by CloudFront, and finally we'll look at Elastic Load Balancing. This service is a domain name service or DNS service with AWS. Domain name service is what allows you to connect to a domain name such as Amazon.com to a specific IP address which is connected to a specific service or a set of servers. So this plays an essential role in building your applications on AWS. Now, a distinguishing factor is that this is a global AWS service and not a regional one. Most of the services on AWS are regional, so this is somewhat unique. When you go to the Route 53, you'll notice that where you normally would be able to select a region for the service, it just says global. This is also a highly available service, but in addition to that, it enables you to create highly available applications. Let's say that you have a web application that you are currently running in the United States, and you set up a health check to monitor the health of the application. And let's say that it detects that your web application is no longer responding as it should be. Maybe the server is down. You can have it route to a different server, even potentially in a completely different region. You are then going to send the users over the region that is in like Ireland instead of the one in United States. And this is a part of what it means to have a highly available application, that you are able to handle failure at any point and yet still provide the same level of service. Another aspect of this service is that it provides global resource routing. So you can choose to route users to a different locations or to different set of servers. For example, depending on either the latency or the geographic locations. So this gives you the ability to really create a global infrastructure where you can support users irrespective of where they are coming from with similar level of performance. Now let's talk about a different service, Virtual Private Cloud. Amazon defines this as a logically isolated section of AWS cloud where you can launch AWS resources in a virtual private network that you define. Amazon VPC or Virtual Private Cloud service supports both IPv4 and IPv6 addresses. You can configure the IP address range, how many subnets you have. You can configure your route tables, you can configure the network gateways. So you could support both public and private subnets. If you have a web application and you want to have your actual web server in a public subnet, but you want to have it able to connect to a database that is in a private subnet that isn't publicly available on the internet, then you can configure that scenario with VPC. You can also enable a connection to your own data center, but you can also connect one VPC to another VPC. It also supports private connections to many AWS services. So if you wanted to enable your web application to have access to Amazon S3 without having to leave your VPC, you can do this with this feature. As I mentioned that there is a service that supports a connection from your VPC into your data center. And this is a service that we call AWS Direct Connect. And this is a cloud service solution that makes it easy to establish this dedicated network connection from your data centers onto AWS. Now, why would you want to do this? There are a couple of reasons. One of them is purely economic. Traffic that comes into AWS from Direct Connect is priced at a lower price than the traffic that comes in from the internet. But another reason you might want to do this is if your organization wants to be able to connect things behind your firewall to things maybe within private subnets within your VPC. You gain the ability to almost extend your data center into AWS using Direct Connect. The next service is Amazon API Gateway. Now, this is a fully managed API service. Fully managed for any service in the cloud means that you don't have to provision and then scale the infrastructure that supports this. You're just using it as a service. And in terms of API managed service, this means that it wraps around the APIs that you create to handle common features such as authentication, authorization, caching, and in some cases translating your data from one format to another. Now, this directly integrates with multiple AWS services. So if you're choosing to launch your API services like EC2 or ECS or Lambda, all of those can be supported using API Gateway. And in addition to this, it does provide monitoring and metrics on all those API calls. It supports VPC and on-premise private applications. Now, we have regions and availability zones, but edge locations are the most prevalent around the globe. An edge location is where end users access services located at AWS. They are located in most of the major cities around the world and are specifically used by CloudFront to distribute the content to the end users to reduce latency. It's like a front end for the services we access, which are located in AWS Cloud. And the primary way that edge locations are used is with another service is Amazon CloudFront. Now, this is a content delivery network or CDN. And why would you use this? It enables users to get the content from the server that's closest to them and not necessarily have to traverse the globe to find the one. Now, this supports both static and dynamic content. When most users think of an CDN, they are thinking about a static content. But CloudFront has capabilities to handle both types of content. And as I mentioned, it does utilize these edge locations. It also includes some advanced security features. The first is AWS Shield. Now, this works specifically against distributed denial of service attacks. So if you have multiple machines that are attempting to overcome your site with traffic, AWS Shield has a way to prevent it from taking your site down. In addition, you have WAF or Web Application Firewall, which is a web firewall that handles some of the most common use cases of bad actors on the internet. Now, the next topic that we are going to discuss is elasticity. Elasticity is the ability for the infrastructure supporting an application to grow and contract based on how much it is used at any point in time. This is the concept of elasticity. And one of the services that supports this on AWS is Elastic Load Balancing. And it does this by distributing traffic across multiple targets. Let's take the example of our web application, and let's say that for our web server, we actually have 4 different servers up and running. And we want to be able to route users to whichever server we think has the least amount of traffic at a given point in time. Well, one of the ways we could do something is very, very similar is by using Elastic Load Balancing. This is going to be able to route users to different locations, and it can integrate with services like EC2, ECS, and Lambda. Now, Elastic Load Balancing can support one or more availability zones, but it only exists within a region. So this is where you could have, for example, if you're using US East 1, you could actually set up a single Elastic Load Balancer across all of the availability zones for that region and choose to route traffic accordingly to all the resources that you have there. Now, there are 3 different types of Elastic Load Balancers currently offered by AWS. The first is an application load balancer, and this is a kind of load balancer that you would use with your web application. The next is a network load balancer. So if you want to look just at actual routing, let's say TCP traffic, and you don't want to actually inspect and modify that, but just route it to a different service depending as it comes in, this is where you would leverage a network load balancer or NLB. There is also a classic load balancer, and this load balancer was original load balancer that was released when AWS released Elastic Load Balancing. And so many legacy applications are still leveraging classic load balancers as part of the infrastructure. So these 6 services make up the core of network and content delivery. And this is important to understand what each of these services do and why you would leverage them.